table with those going the places you know you can go and doing the things you know you can do. Now, we don't see this clubhouse divider with a stage on top and an audience down below. No. Instead, we look at this as the world's largest breakfast table. It's full of motivation, education, inspiration, and even a friendly competition with the positive intention of pushing your momentum in the right direction. Now, listen, if you ever miss a segment, you can go download the Who You Know Show podcast, subscribe, and listen anytime. So head on over to whoyouknow.show, grab the link, and subscribe. So super excited. Today's going to be a great day. I've got an amazing episode for you guys today. But before I get to that, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had a dream? You ever had a vision? You ever had something you wanted to accomplish, but, it kind of felt like a mountain, right? You didn't know where to start. You didn't know where to go. Well, one of the first steps I can tell you is to get a mentor, get some help, get some guidance, somebody who's been there, done that. Okay. And so today's episode, I'm really, really excited about, because joining me again is the incredible Tiffany Jones, who's gearing up to launch her very own podcast, Just Teach It. Okay. And I've had the privilege of helping to guide and mentor her along the way to help get her, off and get her message out there. That was one of the things that I heard her story, and I really wanted to help get the message out, and I knew a podcast could do the trick. And so I called it out of her. I said, hey, Tiffany, you need a podcast. Let's rock, let's roll, let's go. And one of the things about Tiffany that I just love is she's coachable. I said, let's do this. She said, okay. And she's just taking action every step of the way. And so today, what we're going to be talking about is her experiences, some challenges, maybe some triumphs, as she brings her podcast vision to life, ultimately to fuel her mission. And we're going to dive into her progress, some lessons learned, some pitfalls, and some things that she's encountered along the way. So, Tiffany, super excited to have you back. And I'm just so excited for you. And I can't wait to, get this thing out there in the universe. But, welcome back to the show.
Aw, thank you so much, Trevor. It's amazing to be back here, of course. And I just want to reiterate what you said about mentorship, right? It's, someone had said it yesterday. I think it was on Breakfast of Champions. They were talking about how, you want to make sure too, the people that you're asking are the people that have had that experience doing the thing, right? And so, you don't want to ask a dentist how to be an eye surgeon, right? But that is why I truly am so grateful to have, your experience sharing that with me takes me to the next level. So I just am so grateful to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and you're absolutely right. You don't want to, I kind of learned this actually from Amelia Antonetti. The very, very first time I met her, I asked her, as far as who's that person? Who's that person that she leans on, right? Because she's a very, very, very successful person. And she shared to me, she's like, there's not one person that I go to. I don't have that go-to person. If I need marriage advice, I go to this person. Or if I need, advice on school or whatever it is, what is it that you need help with? And you've got to go to the person who's been there and done that. And so I love that you said that. And it was a big takeaway when I asked her that question. That was the very, very first time I met her. And I asked her that. I was like, because I was thinking in my mind, I'm like, she's a very, very, very successful person. I'm like, oh, I want to know who's her person, right? And she just kind of opened it up. It was like, no, I don't have one person. I've got multiple people that I lean on for certain things. I go to the experts who are the go-to people in their field. And so you're absolutely right. You got to go to the person who's, if you want to climb the mountain, you got to go to the person. You got to take somebody that's been there and done that, right?
Exactly. Love it.
All right. So let's dive in. Okay. We had a conversation. Okay. And we're sparking your mission. Okay. To get it out there to the universe. What was the first thing that you did? Okay. To get started?
for the podcast, the
Yep.
first thing I did was say yes.
Mm.
The first
Mic
thing I
drop.
did, yeah, was say yes. And I it was you put out the challenge, you put out that idea, and there was a click, right? There was a click moment in my mind where I decided I was going to try.
Mm.
And I said yes.
I love that. You got to make a decision,
Exactly.
right?
Correct.
I think about my life and the transformation of my life. I was a real big screw up as a kid, made a lot of bad mistakes. And the first thing that I had to do to transform was a decision. And that decision was to leave my mother's house and move to my father's house. It was to change my environment. I had to make a decision,
Yeah.
right? I had to say yes. So to your point, you got to say yes. I remember another example. I remember, and this is a big one. So Breakfast with Champions, when that first came out, day one, Glenn Lundy, he called me up and was like, Trevor, got this thing. It's Clubhouse, Breakfast with Champions. Oh my gosh. It's like crazy. It's like, and he was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to need you like every day for like, 12 hours a day for like, the next unforeseeable future. And I'm like, what? And like, I didn't even know what Clubhouse was or anything like that. He's like, this audio thing. And like, you're going to get on there and like, we're going to talk. And I'm like, there's no camera. No camera. I'm like, is it recorded? No, it's not recorded. I'm like, well, how do you repurpose it? Well, you don't repurpose it. And it's just, but he was like, he just struck gold is what that's the energy he was putting off. Like he found something, right? And he's asking for me. And so I was like, okay, yes. The answer was yes. So sometimes you got to learn when to say yes and make that decision, right? Draw the line in the sand and just commit, plant the flag. Like, I'm going to do this. I don't have it all figured out. I don't even know what Clubhouse is. Tiffany didn't know how to do the podcast. Like, I'm just going to say yes and we're going to figure it out, right?
Exactly. That is, yeah. And yep, exactly. That's it. That's the turning point.
Love that. Okay. So then what? You planted the flag. You said, okay, Trevor, I'm going to do a podcast. You called it out of me. So now what?
And so now for me, that learning part really kicks in, right? And I am a teacher, and I am a teacher because I love to learn. And that's what has happened for me, is that curiosity, and keeping that curiosity, continuing that curiosity, asking questions. So that was, that was my next. Where, how, what's the beginning, and that's, where I went next, was asking those questions, to you, really.
Yep.
You have been my guide. You're my guide, my podcast mentor.
Well, and you guys need to go check out the episode that just dropped a couple days ago. Okay, that was where it was really me and Tiffany going into that, right? We were talking about, where do you even start? Where do you start with a podcast, right? What's the first thing that you do? And first of all, Tiffany, can you tell us again, just real briefly? We won't go dive too deep into it. They can go check out the last episode, but tell us again, Just Teach It, and the mission of Just Teach It.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the mission of Just Teach It is that I believe we all have something in us to teach. I believe we all have a passion. We all have that thing that we love to do that we can share with others. I am a teacher, and I also see a lot of opportunities for all of us to kind of connect and share with each other, teach each other, and learn how to learn. Together we're better. I don't know everything. So, my mission on Just Teach It is really to find those cool people around the world that do have their passion, their mission, and get them to come in and share it.
Love it. Okay. So that's the mission. We want to get that out there. right? And this goes into a couple of steps that I have for people when they're creating a podcast, right? There's kind of like three basic steps before you launch. The first one is to know your niche, right? What are you talking about? Right? Is what, like, you need to have something that you could speak to just organically, right? Fluently. Have something that you just talk about. Like, you would talk about it anyways. What is that thing you're passionate about that you would just talk about? So kind of like know your niche. What is it? And that's one of the things that I would encourage you to do. The next one is to kind of start your brand. Okay, which goes into like the name of your podcast and things like that. So just teach it, right? Perfect name. I love that. Okay. And when we talked, I actually learned this. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank. I'll come up with it to give credit to who I learned this from. Da-da-ding, da-da-ding. I'm drawing a blank, but
Trevor, I'm sorry. If I don't know if Araya is on Clubhouse still right now.
I don't
Araya
know. I don't know.
McGrary. Well, I do want to give her credit because she helped me come up with that name.
She helped you come up with a name.
Araya
Love that.
McGrary gets all the credit for that name, which I absolutely love. As soon as she said it, I was like, oh yes, hook, line, and sinker. But yeah, want to give credit where credit is due. Absolutely.
Absolutely. There's something that I learned, which was it's to keep it simple, right? You know that you've heard that, keep it simple, stupid.
Yes.
Right. And it's clear, not clever. Clear, not clever. Okay. And basically, and I wish I could go back in time, and I could do this, but I've done 6.5 years with my podcast, the name being the Who You Know show, right? But it doesn't necessarily say what it is. Okay. Like that, it's clever, not clear, right? Let me explain. So if I had to go back, and I would probably change it up. So, people have heard that it's not what you know, it's who you know. Okay. But does that really say what the podcast is about? The Who You Know show? It's like, what is this about? That you have to almost think about it. And so to give you an example, here's one that's clear. There was a guy I knew who did a show, and it was NFTs for dummies.
Okay.
Right? NFTs for dummies. And that's clear, right? Like if you think about NFTs and crypto and all that kind of stuff, those are kind of like complex things that, I remember when all that stuff first came out, and it was like the buzz and everybody's talking about it, and it was kind of like way over your head. And it's like, oh my gosh, how the blockchain and blah, 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 like understanding all that. So like breaking it down and making it easy. So it was NFTs for dummies, right? And what a cool podcast name. And it actually, like, it tells you exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Love that.
So clear, not clever. And I like the name of your podcast because it is that. Just teach it. Right. So building your brand is step 2. And then step 3 is kind of building your format and your style. Like, how do you want to do this? Because there's a lot of different ways to do a podcast. There's interview style, like we're doing now. There's coaching, which is also what we're doing now. So you have interview, you've got coaching, you've got solo, where you're just going to teach a subject on your own, right? There's lots of different types of formats, and it's picking your style, and also not being afraid to kind of maybe switch it up. Maybe you try a style, maybe you switch it up, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to get different types of content out of each style, right? So that's kind of the 3 things I would decide before getting started. But to your point, just planting that flag and saying yes, like, and then, okay, so let's talk about that. We had a call. Yes. What were some of the things that you learned that helped you to get started? What were some of the first things that you did?
So the first thing I did was I downloaded Riverside. I think I think that that's the other piece. The piece too is that it can get overwhelming about
Mm,
where do I start, what do I use, what do I do, and so just being clear about download Riverside. Okay, I loved having that direction because it took away the decision for me. It took away the that having to mull through and all the just it took away so much time for me, and I was like, keep it simple. I
mm.
love that, Trevor. So that was the next thing I did, and and of course I downloaded it with an open mind. Maybe it wasn't going to work for me, maybe it was. Right, I love, you gave me that open option, and I enjoy it. I'm into it. I love it so
Yeah, I
far. So
love that. So, that's one of the things. It's like there's so many tools out there. It's like, how am I going to do this podcast? Uh, you could use Zoom, right? Riverside's a tool. I mean, there's just a bunch, right? So a bunch of different tools out there. There's Restream and there's StreamYard and there's all these tools, right?
right,
So knowing kind of just where to start and getting started, that's huge too. Because I remember, like, especially you're like looking at all of them and you don't know which one's gonna, like, until you get in it. Like,
exactly,
you don't really know, but ask the people who are doing it, right? And so Riverside, let's talk about the advantages of Riverside.
yeah,
It's like a high-end Zoom. Okay, so it gives
exactly,
you individual audio tracks and it gives you individual cameras, camera shots. And like our last episode, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but the audio was not phenomenal. Okay, we had some tech issues. Something was going on behind the scenes. I'm not sure exactly what it was. But the great part about it is that because it records individual audio tracks, you can then go in and master each person's audio separately, right? So Tiffany's volume was a lot lower than mine. And so, if you watched it live, didn't sound that great, to be honest with you. Right.
yeah,
There were some issues going on. Well, guess what? We were able to get in there and fix it, right? Mix and master it. There's nothing worse than doing an episode. Like, it was an hour and a half episode that we did, and you're not going to find out until later what went wrong, and you're going to go, oh crap, and you don't want to junk that episode, right?
yeah,
What a waste. And then
yeah,
imagine calling your guest up and saying, hey, oh, you know what, we kind of screwed up. And then if you do re-record it, guess what? It won't be authentic, right?
exactly,
It won't be
exactly,
an authentic conversation. So Riverside really gives you the ability to, again, fix things if you need to, which is really cool. So I love that for that purpose. It also has some really cool technology built in, AI that's built into the tool. It creates clips for you. So automatically clips out your videos, um, and makes like reels and TikToks and all that, right? It'll
yeah.
automatically do that. Uh,
The captions
Captions, yeah,
flow,
auto
flow.
captions it. The what's the other thing it does? Oh, show notes. It'll automatically generate show notes for you. I
Yeah,
remember I had a copywriter, okay, that I paid like $300 a month to write show notes, handwrite show notes. She would listen to the episodes and handwrite show notes and timestamps and all of that for our podcast. $300 a month. This
wow.
tool is $24 a month. Are you kidding me?
I
Like,
know.
it saves you money because the AI now is so good. Okay, what else did you do? So Riverside, great,
Yep,
check,
yep.
right? For those
So
listening.
Riverside check. Then the next thing I did, Trevor, was Calendly. And
Mm,
that was the other tool. And I'm going to say that this is, no matter what you use for your podcast or whatever, if you have another calendar app, that's great. But the Calendly app was fabulous because I could, first of all, create my calendar, send it out to my guests, etc. I could mark when I'm available, the times that I want to fit it into my schedule. And then you gave me really clear questions to ask in the Calendly page. So even before I've even spoken to my guest, I mean, I can text them, I can send my Calendly link, and they have about 3 pages of 3 questions, right? Like questions to answer, and I get back so much information just like that.
Yeah, I love that. Calendly is a great tool. It's like a game changer, seriously, game changer. Okay. Not just for podcasting, but for, just everyday life, scheduling, all the different types of meetings and everything. And I'm actually looking for my Calendly link for right now for my podcast so I can share just a couple of the questions to give people an idea. Right. So again, you're going to send out your calendar to your guests. And guys, don't let your guests run the show. Okay. Don't let the guests run and dictate your calendar and when you do your podcast and all of that. And you also don't want to go back and forth and tell them, hey, does Tuesday at 3:00 work with you or 4? No, that's like, come on, y'all. We live in a digital world. Use a calendar. Okay. And send them, like, maybe you only record, like I do my show, literally I only do my show right now Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Central. This is when I record live, and so I have my calendar built out Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Central. Okay, they don't get if they want a different day and different time, we're gonna have to talk about it. You know what I mean? We're gonna have to discuss, because this is the time that I record my podcast. The other thing is, you may want to do, and I've done this before too, is record in bulk. Okay, so maybe you pick a time block of 4 or 5 hours so you can record and batch record a bunch of episodes in one day, so you're not doing it every week or what have you. Maybe you do once a month. There's different ways to do it. Okay, but I prefer, for me personally, I prefer weekly. And the reason I prefer weekly is because it keeps me fresh. I'm always creating new content, right? And so it keeps me fresh, right? And I'm getting the reps in, right? It's like, again, if you went to the gym once a month, right? And you did, a 5-hour workout versus going every week for an hour, right? Like if you went to the gym for 5 hours just once a month, it's not going to be good for you. Actually, it's not going to be good for you. So I'm just going to say, for me personally, I prefer the weekly because I'm getting my reps in. It makes me stronger. Here's some of the questions, okay, that I put inside of my Calendly.
Yep. And I think I used exactly these questions. That was another gift you gave.
Absolutely. So the first one was just, professional title, right? I just want a short title and then a short bio. I don't need a long, and I put 2 to 3 lines because I don't want, you ever had those bios that are like, it's a book. You don't need a you don't need a 1-page bio. You need 2 to 3 lines. Okay. And then for me, again, whatever the topic is of your podcast, I ask them, are there any particular areas or topics that you'd like to discuss during this podcast within, for me, it's self-improvement, career advancement, business growth, personal development, right? Like I'm trying to get them to create even like any topics or questions that they want to make sure we cover around what the podcast is about. Okay. And they'll often send you, questions that they're like, yeah, this or this topic or this or that, right? So it helps you to create the content around that. Okay. The other thing I want to know is if are there any specific like products, websites, events, books, anything that they want to highlight, right? I want to make sure that I'm highlighting them. I want to make sure that I'm spotlighting them. So I want to know what book, event, things like that they got going on. The other thing that I put in here, I want to make sure that their website, their social links, anything that needs to appear in the podcast description to go ahead and put inside of there. Okay. Another question that's important to ask, and this is game changer right here, ask in your Calendly if they have a podcast that they would consider collaborating on, right? You're inviting them on your platform. Do they have a platform, right? Can you collaborate on an episode, right?
Yes.
So that's a huge one. And then the last one that I ask there is I say, like for our show, I say the Who You Know show is built on networking and referrals. It's how we uncover hidden gems like you. Please nominate 3 people who could potentially be a fit for our show, right? And so this is how I get referrals, right? And people will put in there, oh, you need to have so-and-so on. Oh, you need to have this person on. Oh, you need to. So one of the things is, as you're getting started with a podcast, is guesting, right? Getting guests on your show. And that can be challenging when you're first getting started. And so this helps you to get a little bit of name flow going on for your show. And you just simply ask, say, hey, networking, like our show's built around networking and referrals. Who do you know? Right.
Yeah.
So those are some simple questions that I add inside of my form. But what else? What are some other things that what was the next thing? You got Calendly, you got Riverside. What else?
I got Calendly, I got Riverside, and then I sent out my link, Trevor, right? I had a list. I have a list, and we had talked about that too. I have my dream people in my mind, right? My Tony Robbins that is going to come on our show. It's going to be awesome when
Let's
Tony
go. Speak it.
Right. And Michelle Obama is going to join, all the people that are going to join us, right?
Yes, let's go.
Yeah. And then I have my list of all the network, my experts, these people, like, so I just sent out my link. I just sent out my link to as many as I could, just letting them know I have this opportunity to highlight you. Yeah, I want to share what and give you a platform, right? Give you a platform, an opportunity to and that's what I love about this whole podcasting idea, Trevor, is that ask for me is exactly what I want to do. I am a helper. I want to help you. I want to uplift you. And so now having this platform that I can invite you to come share about you and what you do is it's so fun for me. I love that.
Yeah, you get to speak life into people. You get to highlight people. You get to promote people. You get to, like, it's such a cool thing. And it's one of the reasons why podcasting is a networking superpower. Okay. It really is a networking superpower, because when you get done with that episode, you are building a relationship. Why? Why is the relationship expedited? It's because you're making it all about them. And that's what networking is. Networking is, how can you make someone else's life easier, better, smoother? Can you solve a problem, right? Like, how can you support and add value to their life? That's what networking is, because this crazy thing called the law of reciprocity happens. And when you're highlighting them, you're promoting them, you're supporting them, you're encouraging them, you're doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden they're like, how can I help Tiffany? What can I do for Tiffany? How can I support Tiffany? This is a crazy thing called podcasting, y'all. It's a networking superpower.
It really, really, really is. And that is, it's a magic ticket. It really is. And I think, before you put the seed in my brain, before you did this, gave me this idea, gave me the opportunity, challenge. I had been a guest. I had been looking to be a guest. I was like, I can be a guest on your show. I have a big story. I want to help people. I want to get my message out. And I was like spending all my time asking people to be on their show. And flipping the table, Trevor, has been magic.
Let's dive into that for a second. Okay.
Yeah.
Other people's podcasts, which there's strategy on both sides of that. Okay. But how was that going? Okay. So you got a story, you got a mission, you're trying to connect, right? And you're going out and you're trying to get on other people's platforms, right? Like, how was that going? Let's dig behind the scenes of that.
yeah, we can dig behind the scenes of that. There was, I have a couple text messages to people. I was like, I'm begging people to be on their podcast. Like one message I sent, and my friend SG, she wrote back and she was like, "You should not be begging people to be on their podcast." I was like, I know, but how else do I do it? Right? It
Mm,
was, and it was that feeling, right? It was that feeling that I had that, you know, of like, fear of rejection,
mm,
fear of that I'm not enough. Like all these real pieces were coming up for me as I was asking to be a guest on people's shows.
mm.
And
Well,
all
let's
of
talk
that.
about that. Why? Why?
Yes.
Okay, so let's unpack that for a second, because
Okay.
remember I was just talking about networking
Yeah.
is about the other person. It's how can you make their life easier? How can you support them? It's all about giving, really. And then so what you were doing is now we're trying to go on other people's show, which is all about you,
Yeah.
right? It's not about them,
Yeah.
it's about you. So it felt
Exactly.
gross to you because you're like, instead of
Yes.
giving, you're taking, right?
Exactly.
That's what it
Exactly.
felt like. Right.
100%. 100%. I was taking, and I'm not a taker.
Mm. That's
You know,
good. That's good.
that's
And listen,
yeah.
I don't want to tell anybody, hey, you shouldn't go on other podcasts because you're just a taker. No, 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 no. I go on other people's shows all the time. And
Yeah.
matter of fact, there's a strategy on that. It's actually really, really good, because you're leveraging their audience. You're leveraging their time, right? That it took them to build their stage and their audience and all of that. So don't want to sit here and say going on other people's shows is bad. There's actually a lot, like, you want to get
Oh,
there a lot faster, leverage other people's stages. Okay.
yeah.
That's one of the things I learned. Pete Vargas, I went to 10X stages and leverage what they built, right? Their time, their energy, and all of that. But it can be a lot like more challenging, a lot harder to get them to open that door for you if you haven't really had anything to start out with. And that's why you have podcasting agencies and things like that. Like shout out to C Rock with that one agency. That's
Yeah.
what they do. They help people who are just getting started, right, to get on other people's shows. They have that network and they will promote you and they will, they'll do it for you. So Tiffany's not the one having to do it, right?
Right.
They do
Right.
it for you and they've got the relationships. And
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
much, I'll tell you, that one shout out to them and C Rock. Pretty much every person that they send me, I would say about 95%, I say yes. I'm like, yep, cool. And that's how I'm able to get a lot of the great guests on my shows, because they refer me these amazing people.
Yeah.
So guys, I would say for those just starting out in the podcasting world, if you're like, I want to go on other people's shows, I don't really have an interest in doing my own. I want to go get on other people's shows, and you
Yeah.
don't really have any credibility or authority or anything yet. You're just getting started. That's okay, but you may consider, an agency who can help you to promote you and spotlight you. So that's it's a great piece that we're talking about that. So
Yeah. I think that's great. And I definitely, and the other piece about being on other people's shows, Trevor, was it got my foot in that door, right?
mm,
So I knew what it was to get on a podcast. I
mm,
knew what that kind of interview style looked like as a guest, which I think only helps me now as a podcaster, right? Is having had that experience on that
that's
as a
great.
guest. Yeah.
Yeah, my first experience was going on someone else's stage, right?
Yeah.
I got invited and it, was like, wow, this is amazing, right? And that's where I got the bug. The bug hit me and I'm like, dang, I got to do this myself, right? So that's a good point. Maybe get onto a show, experience what it's like to be the guest, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's actually it's easier if you can get onto other people's shows. If you can get that door open and get onto other people's podcasts, it is actually easier because you're talking about what you know, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit easier. But okay, so let's dive back into starting your own and creating your
Yeah.
own stage, because this is
Yeah.
one thing that I learned. If no one invites you on their stage, create your own stage. Create your own. Like,
Yeah.
don't wait for people to, invite you and all this kind of stuff. Like, create your own stage. So that's what you're doing. You got Calendly. You start
Yep.
sending it out. Okay.
Yep.
And let's talk about the results.
The results were instant, Trevor.
Instant results. What?
I got instant results. I got it. Yeah.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Totally. I'm a listener, and I do spend a lot of time networking. I spend Clubhouse is a big network, and LinkedIn is a big network, and I've been networking, right, for a few years, and now being able to offer this platform to people was just instant. I mean, I got my first guest is this NLP master. He has worked in education for 40 years. He's such a great, cool guest that I got on, and and it filled up. My Calendly is continues to fill up. And
Imagine that.
I
Imagine
know,
that. Your calendar is filled up with
yeah,
people that you want to be having conversations with. Like, you probably wanted to talk with these people anyways, right?
yes,
Right.
yes,
Like, what a strategy. What a great business strategy. Think about that for your business, for business networking, people that can help you take your business to that next level. Think about that. You need them in your world anyways. You need to be creating relationships with these people. And what an amazing opportunity to give them something to add value to their life. Again, networking is making the other person's life easier, better, smoother, whatever, right? Helping, serving. And so now your calendar's filled up with people you want in your life anyways.
that you want in your life, exactly. And we always talk about how we are those people that we surround ourselves with. And
Mm-hmm.
the other piece you mentioned it just now too, Trevor, that's amazing for me is that I get to ask the questions.
Mm.
I have things that I want to know, and I think that other people will want to know them. And so, I get to pick their brains, right? Like, I
Yeah.
don't like that expression, but I
Right.
that's what I get to do. I get to learn. I get to know what they know.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, no, okay. Yeah, you said I want to pick your brain. What an
Yeah.
ick. What a gross term, right?
I
Like,
know.
but that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right? We're
Yeah.
getting to like ask them all these questions and learn behind the scenes of how they did it. Like, think about that for a minute. Somebody asked me this question. Okay, so I had Grant Cardone on my show, and I've had some pretty big names on the show and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And somebody asked me, they're like, "Did you have to pay to get him on your show?" I said no. And they're like, "Really? You know what that guy charges to go on to stages and blah 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 blah?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Podcasting is different. Like, yeah, if I'm going to ask him to do a keynote or something like that, yeah, he's going to charge me to, come to my event, but he'll take an hour out to come on my show. Why? Because I'm promoting him. Again, I'm making it about him. He's getting to leverage my audience, right? So again, but now I get to look behind the curtain,
I
and
know.
I get to figure out how Grant is doing things, and I get to pick Grant's brain. How cool is that? Yes, I should be charged. He should charge me. He should send me an invoice at the end of that, but he doesn't, right? That's how cool this podcasting game is, right? You get to talk to the people who are doing things that you want to be doing.
Exactly. And I'm going to go back to the very beginning of just today, Trevor, when you asked Amelia,
Yeah.
right? That was it. That's how we know. That's how we grow, is asking these questions. And so now to have this platform where I can continue my growth
Mm.
by asking these questions to the people that you want to learn from. And just the empowerment, Trevor, of having this ability is 10x. We'll go to
Yeah,
Grant.
absolutely.
10x.
It's 10x. Absolutely. Okay. So you got your calendar filled up. You got people you want to be talking to. All right. Have you had your first episode?
I have. I've had actually 3 recording sessions.
Oh,
So
let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Like we just did this. What was it, 2 weeks ago or something like that?
yeah, yeah.
You've already recorded 3 episodes. Okay. And let's talk about that process for you. Okay.
Okay.
Before you recorded, what were some of the things that you did? And to get you ready.
Yeah. The first thing I did was I went back to those Calendly questions,
Mhm.
and I took that information. And can we tell the secret sauce what we
Oh,
do
the
with that
secret sauce. Oh my gosh, yes, let's tell the secret sauce. Okay, this is hey, anybody listening right now, this is secret sauce to podcasting,
secret?
because let me tell you something. Before we get to that, I'm going to give you the story, okay? I've been
Okay.
doing podcasting since 2018, January of 2018. So call it 6.5 years, hundreds and hundreds of episodes. Like literally, I'm probably in the 600s now. And let me just tell you, doing your research, like researching your guests before you do your interview and coming up with questions to ask them. And I would spend hours, literally hours of interview prep. Okay. And podcasters would probably kill me if I said this, because they're going to be like, oh, you're shortcutting or whatever. Blah, 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 blah. I don't care. I'm just going to give you the secret sauce to give me part of my life back. All right.
Yes.
Because podcasting does not need to be a job. Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to take control of your life, and it can easily. Okay. So here's kind of the secret sauce. Okay. You take those Calendly questions, you take the bio and the title and the some of the questions that they want to talk about in their website, and you take all this information and you copy
Yep.
it, and you head on over to this thing called Chat GPT. All right. You go to Chat GPT and you say, Chat GPT, please write me a podcast episode title, description, and questions for
Perfect.
this guest right here, and paste that in. And what was your result, Tiffany? Like,
Oh, I mean, come on. It was phenomenal. Instantaneous title, description, and questions on the screen for me right there at the
boom.
computer. Boom.
Yeah.
Done.
And probably better, like, I'm gonna just be real, because I've
Yes.
done the research and I've done it the hard way. And like, listen, these questions a lot of times are way better. Now, again, some of these podcasts would be like, "Oh, you're not doing your own. You're having Chat GPT write your podcast." Listen. Let me say something right now, okay? If you are just asking questions, you're doing your podcast wrong. Anyways, the questions are literally just to give you a runway. Okay, it's to give you a format, give you a structure, just in case. Like, but you need to have the ability to go with the flow. Have a conversation. I had an interview just the other day I was on. Okay, now I'm not going to say which one it was, but literally on this interview, they were interviewing me, and it was like she was not going with the flow. She was not continuing the conversations. When I would pause to give her an opportunity to get in there to talk, like she would just dive right to the next question. And I'm like, man, this sounds like an interrogation, not an interview, right? Not a conversation. It was an interrogation. So guys, don't do an interrogation, right? Have a conversation.
Exactly. And Trevor, exactly what you said. The questions are guidelines. I didn't ask, and I read the questions. I looked at the questions. They gave me great ideas, those questions.
Bingo.
Some that I wouldn't have thought of on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't read the question from Chat GPT. I absorbed the question after reading it. I got the gist of what that question was asking, and I jotted them down. I jotted down some notes that I was going to have while while we're having the conversation. And some of the questions I didn't get to ask. some of the questions were different, like, because it is that conversation. It's not like a set in stone, I gotta get ABC done.
Yeah,
It's
and there may be, one or two or something that you're like, I have to ask this question. Like there may be some that you're like, I got to.
Yes.
And like I'll give you a couple of examples. So okay, I had Ken Coleman on my show, and a matter of fact, shout out Ken Coleman. He's coming back on this year in actually just in a few days, the 22nd.
Cool.
Anyways, so Ken Coleman, if you don't know who he is, big personality. He's actually on the Dave Ramsey network. Like this
Yes.
guy's, he's kind of a big deal. Let's just put it that way. Kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of.
Anyways, and yeah, just kind of. And he knows some major names. Like he has a show too called the Ken Coleman Show, which he's had huge names on his show. Anyway, I mean, he's on the Dave Ramsey network. So guess what? Dave Ramsey's on there all the time with him anyway. So, and Dave Ramsey's on, guess what? My podcast wish list.
Yes.
All right. I have a podcast wish list. So anyways, during this episode, I know this. Okay. I know this. And like, okay, there was a question in there. I wanted to kind of set it up. I wanted to set up.
Yeah.
And I asked him, well, first of all, he was referred to me. He was referred to me by Amberly Lago. Okay. So it's already a who you know moment why he's in my studio, right? He was referred. Okay, cool. So I was like, shout out Amberly, appreciate you referring, Ken over here. And it's all about who you know. And what did I say? I set it up. I asked him, I said, what's more important, what you know or who you know? And he said, who you know. And I said, well, some pretty big names, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to level up my podcast. I'm trying to have bigger names on my show, this, that, and the other. People like you that are crushing it, doing big things. And I'm complimenting him. I'm like, people that are just absolutely, crushing. And so who do you know, right? That you think should sit in that chair where you're sitting right now? And that was the question I asked him. And it was a setup question because it was, again, hey, you were referred here, right?
Yes.
Who would you refer to be here, right?
Exactly.
And it worked. I mean, he was like, actually, he's like, dude, you should go on my podcast, look at anybody I've ever interviewed, and I'll make an introduction for you. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, he gave me the Rolodex with that one. I was like, dang, right? But again, the point of that whole story was just like, you may have some questions that you want, like, I gotta ask him this, because if I can ask Ken this question and if it goes smoothly, I gotta be bold and ask. But if I'm bold and ask, he could open the doors for all these other big names for me, right?
Yes.
So I'm like, I gotta make sure this one gets out there. So you may have some questions that you absolutely, but keep it conversational, guys. Don't be so scripted with it.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, that was another secret sauce. That was a magic tool, right? Like Riverside,
ChatGPT.
Calendly, Chat GPT had that guideline. So, it gave me the foundation that I needed to hit record, to know that I wasn't going in there not knowing what we were gonna talk about. Having that kind of ideas in my head, those questions laid out of what we're gonna talk about.
Okay, so you hit record. You got your first episode. You hit record, okay,
Cool.
and you started it up. And how did it go? How was it?
Oh my goodness, it flew by. It flew by. The time flew by, Trevor, right?
Yep.
I was like, the next thing I know, I looked down and I'm like, it's been 45 minutes. Oh my goodness. Because we got into this conversation, and I his name is Chuck Bernard. He and I used to teach together in middle school, and I've know this guy. But I didn't know, like, I feel like I looked behind the curtain, like you were saying before, right? As the questions evolved, he had so much knowledge on NLP and mindset shifts, and he works with student athletes that are
Mm,
going to go professional. Like he works with these high achieving athletes and looking at those kind of mindset things like why isn't he hitting 400 or whatever. um and it was just fascinating, Trevor. It was
mm,
so cool for me to get to know him on a deeper level,
love
and
that.
and highlight all the things that he knows. And I know anybody listening to this is going to get something from it.
Mm. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Okay. So we
Yeah.
got a few episodes under your belt, right?
Yeah.
And we had a phone call, right? And on that call, you had some questions for me. Okay. Let's talk about some questions. Okay. Because the process doesn't stop here. We just recorded an episode. We're just getting started. Okay. Now
Yeah.
what? All right. So let's dive into that call and some of those questions that you have. And then maybe more questions. I'm sure you probably have more. So let's talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, I think that was, it gets to the technical piece. I have recorded. What do I do? How do I upload it into Spotify? And I feel like I got, after that first episode, it went so well. I got into a panic mode, Trevor. I
Mm.
got into this like, oh my gosh, I just did this episode. Now I've got to get it out. I and I I, I didn't. I kind of lost track of time, and that
Mm.
sense of I had a panic, and talking to you helped me so much, Trevor, to get a more realistic timeline back in play.
Mm. Yeah, because oftentimes, right, okay, you just start a podcast, you're like, I need to release that like tomorrow. No,
Yes.
it doesn't work that way. Podcasting doesn't work that. Now, if you have a great team and like you can get things out quick, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. And especially, when you're just starting, I recommend to have at least 10 episodes so you can like have them recorded, have them edited and polished, and have everything ready to go. You need your show notes ready to go. You need your thumbnails ready to go. You need everything ready
Yeah.
so that you can release them one at a time. And now what did you just did is you put yourself 10 weeks ahead. Okay. You like, so now you're not always pressured to like put that next one out, next one out, next one. No, I got 10 that are ready to go. I got 10. I'm 10 weeks in advance is what I am. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
That was such a huge, I just really appreciated that reality, right? That reality dose of reality. And I think that's going to it makes a world of difference in like how I'm going to be able to get those thumbnails created, intro, outro, how I'm going to be able to put it together and then create that product that I'm really proud of to put
Mm-hmm.
out and start with and go.
Well, and I'll
Uh,
tell you, because of my journey, we started out radio first, and it wasn't necessarily a podcast first, it was radio. And we weren't doing there was no editing on the audio, there was no editing on the video, there was no thumbnails, there was no show notes, there was no nothing. Okay. Like, and I neglected, I didn't really understand podcasting when we started. And I thought we were better than a podcast. I used to say we're more than a podcast because we were video. And back in the day, podcast meant audio. And so now it's the same, right? A podcast is both. And so it's not just audio only. Anyways, long story short, for years I didn't do anything with the content. I didn't edit it. I didn't polish it. And when we did do the podcast, it was junk. Like no one was listening to that because it wasn't professional. It wasn't polished and didn't have show notes, didn't have thumbnails, didn't have all the things that you need. Okay. And so it was nothing. Like the podcast was junk. Okay. And I had to go back behind the scenes and record or edit hundreds of episodes to get it like and essentially relaunch my podcast because and so what I want people to do is let's do it right from the start.
yeah.
Let's like do what you need to do from the start. Let's not have to go like don't make the mistake I did and have to go back and edit hundreds of episodes because you weren't doing you did 75% of the work and didn't do the last 25%. You know what I mean?
100%. And I think, so many people are like, just start, and you don't need a lot to start. But I
Mm-mm.
do love this idea of building the 10 and having it in the can, so
Mm-hmm.
to speak, because it gives me the opportunity to create a workflow.
Mm.
Right, each episode that I'm doing, I'm learning, how is my workflow going to work? What are the steps I'm going to take? How am I going to get those thumbnails, intro, outro? Is that where I want it? Getting the person that can help me to put it together, all those pieces. I have time now.
Yes.
I don't have to just put it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not under so much pressure. The only thing that I want you focused, like super
Yeah.
focused on right now, or have any pressure on, is just record. Like, get those 10 episodes out there, right? And so you're already 3 in, so that's great. So you got 7 more. You got time, okay? And then again, once you have all this stuff, is like, again, maybe sending that episode, like you said, intros and outros, sending that to an editor. I recommend that people go to Upwork. Okay, you can hire a freelance video editor, on Upwork, and they'll work like literally from a freelance editor from overseas will work for $8-10 an hour. Okay, you might be able to get a video episode completely edited, intros, outros, B-roll, all this stuff. Okay, like really, really polish up your episode so it's something that somebody actually would sit down and watch and consume, not just listen to, but watch and consume, because you're going to build your YouTube channel with this. You're going to build all your video content with this, right? So you can get somebody to help you to edit this from overseas for $8 to $10 an hour, and they'll an episode will probably take a couple hours, so call it $20 an episode to have it like completely polished up, right?
Yeah, I think that's amazing, and I love that. I love that idea. So yeah, so and what I will say also, I have gone to Upworks, and I put my job in, right? I put my
Mm,
job description in, and I'm gotten some people that have responded. What's been interesting to me is I want to find somebody who has used Riverside, because
mm.
again, we go back to that. There are so many different programs,
Yep.
right? And so it's been interesting kind of weeding through. I am looking for somebody who does have experience with the same, because I want it to be simple. I also am looking for someone who I can grow with, who can do this consistently. I don't want to
Mm,
keep looking for different people every time.
yes. Here's
And so
another pro tip for you. Another pro tip while you're
okay,
hiring on Upwork.
okay,
This is so good. I think I got this from Evan Carmichael. I believe I learned this from him, and it was like, gosh, that's such a pro tip. Okay, so you're hiring on Upwork. You put out your job description in there. I want you to put in your job description, put a link to one of your episodes. Okay, put a link to an episode that you really like. Go watch someone else's podcast. Go to YouTube. Whose podcast do you like? Whose intros and outros do you really, really, really enjoy? Okay. Is
yeah,
there someone out there that you tune into on, on YouTube that you're like, man, this podcast is freaking fire. Okay. I
yeah,
wish mine looked like that. Okay. So what you're doing is you're saying, hey, here's mine. Okay. I just recorded this episode. Here's what I like. This is something I want. Now, part of your application, please provide a sample, not a sample of your work. I need you to edit this episode as your application. I need you to submit in like an example of my episode. I need you to edit mine
yes,
as part of your application. And so what happens is let's say you get 10 people to apply for the job.
yeah,
Okay. And they go in, and maybe they're not always going to edit the whole entire episode, but they're going to edit a portion of your episode, and they're going to send you that as an example so you can watch it and go, oh wow, I like this one. Oh, now this one sucks. Oh, this one's phenomenal, but he's kind of expensive. But wow, okay. So now you're getting a range of what they actually do, the end product. Okay. You get 10 applications, you get 10 examples, you get to see, okay, this person charges $10 an hour, this person charges $6 an hour, but the product isn't as great. You know what I mean? You're going to get an
Yeah.
idea of who it is, and you'll know it. You'll know it like
Yeah.
just like that. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry necessarily if they have experience with Riverside, Tiffany.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't necessarily worry with that, because all you got to do is give them your login information, tell them that they will need to do this, right?
Yep.
They're going to need to log into your Riverside account, download the content, right? Like
Yep.
that's something that's fairly easily teachable if they don't already know it.
Okay.
But I wouldn't necessarily make that a requirement. It's a very, very basic for them to get in there and download the content. It's pretty simple. So
Okay.
I would
Okay.
worry
That's
more
great. That's
about,
good to know.
yeah, I'd
Yeah.
worry more about, again, the end product. What is
Yeah.
it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? What's it going to sound like? Right? What's the end
Exactly. That
product
makes
of your podcast? And so again, that's a pro tip, is to have them send in examples of their work by editing a portion of your episode, and you're going to get 10 examples, and you're going to go, wow, here's the one I love. This
And
one,
I love that, Trevor, because
boom.
then you're comparing the apples to apples.
Yes, apples and apples, 100%. Because
You
they'll send
know?
you examples of their other work they've
Yeah.
done, and
Exactly.
it's still hard. It's good to see their portfolio, but it's still hard to get an idea. So have them edit an episode, like a portion of your episode. That's a fire pro tip right there.
That is a hot pro tip.
Absolutely.
Love that. I love that. So that is what I'm doing. I did have a question about an episode that I had a problem with.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Okay. It was yesterday. I was recording, and I was recording three people, or two other people rather. So there were three of us on the screen.
Okay.
Which was fine. But
Mhm.
I got a tip from Riverside that one of my guests was using a roadcaster.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I'm
I don't
literally
know.
I'm looking at that alert right now. It says heads up. I'm literally looking at it right now because I use a roadcaster. Okay.
Okay.
That's what I use.
Okay.
And so it says heads up, using a roadcaster, make sure you're using the right mixer settings. Okay.
Okay.
So what is a roadcaster? Let's talk about it. A roadcaster is a mixer. Okay. That right now I've got my my professional microphone, right? This is an XLR microphone, which, by the way, guys, you don't need all of this fancy equipment to start a podcast. You really don't. I got this for some other specific reasons. I was doing Clubhouse, and in the very early days of Clubhouse, I was trying to find my voice because it brought back my fear of public speaking again, because there was no camera, because I couldn't have body language, because I couldn't, and it was just a new thing. It was this audio only thing, and it was very, very, very strange in the early days. And so it was, for me, I got the roadcaster so I could do sound effects, and I could do, like, I became like a DJ all of a sudden. I was like, cool, now I got this. Okay. I felt comfortable. I put the headphones on, and I'm like, yeah, I got this. Anyway.
Yeah.
You don't need all this to do a podcast, by the way. Okay. You don't.
Yeah.
But but people out there have them, right? Roadcasters are amazing. They're a phenomenal tool. You can plug 4 microphones into it. Okay. XLR microphones. It's great to take to some place. Let's say you're going to a conference and you want to interview a bunch of people. This little board that you take with you, plug in your microphones. You can do setups. Very, very cool piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question, with Riverside's giving you a warning. It's telling you that in order for the sound quality to be good, they need to go into their settings. Okay. And they need to turn on the mix minus. Okay. So I would know this rule. Okay. Know it.
Yes.
Because you're going to run into it. You will run into it. Which, by the way, that tells me if you had somebody that had a roadcaster and had a professional mic and all this stuff, that is a great person to have on your podcast. Why? Because they're a podcaster and they already know this stuff, and you want people like that. You don't want somebody coming into your podcast that's like the I don't know, like the camera's all grainy and like all this, it's just kind of, they look like crap, right? It always looks better, feels better, sounds better if they have their own professional equipment. So good job for you. You had a pro on the show.
I did. I did have a pro. I had a couple pros. Yes, I'm very excited about that episode too. Um, it was cool. But then what also happened during that episode is that on my end, Trevor, they couldn't hear me.
Mm.
I was, and I think they couldn't see me either. But I saw myself and I could hear myself and I could hear them, but I could not, it was something, I don't know, something got dropped.
Mm. Okay, so at the bottom of Riverside are some menus. Okay, so you have to think of this like Zoom. Same thing with Zoom. When you get into a Zoom,
Yeah.
it wants to know what camera you're using, right? You may have, like, I literally have a professional camera right here, and then I have another camera on my desktop right here that pops up. So I have two cameras. Which one am I using? It's going to ask you, you know, what microphone are you using? I could be using the microphone that's from my desktop right here, or I could be using this microphone. So which microphone am I using? So there's, at the very bottom, there's a menu where you're going to be selecting these things. And then also remember, your computer has settings as well. Okay. So this is just one of those like things where you're going to have to dive into it, get used to your settings. And there's only one way to really get good to this. Because again, I don't have the same computer you do. I don't have the same settings you do, all these different things, right? And you're not going to have the same settings as your guest, right? So this is one of those things where it's like, I always encourage a 15-minute pre-show before hitting live, right? So our show goes live at 9 a.m. Central, but I always have the guests pop in at 8:45. Why? So I can do a sound check, troubleshoot, figure things out. I don't want to be up against the gun right at 9 o'clock and all of a sudden, like, we're running into tech issues, which guess what? Is going to happen, though. Sometimes there are some times where you're just going to run into an episode where the sound issues, and I would encourage you, instead of pushing through that episode, okay, if you know, like, you know that this isn't going to sound right, isn't going to look right, isn't going to feel right for whatever reason, you know it, okay, reschedule. Okay, don't push through and then all of a sudden, again, you have a throwaway episode. Like, you don't want to do that. You don't want to throw away an episode. The authenticity is what makes a podcast so strong, right? And so if you push through that episode and then you're like, oh crap, this was a throwaway, and then you have to reschedule it, now it's not as genuine, right? You're trying to recreate what you did the first time, and it'll sound a lot more scripted. You know what I mean?
Right, I totally do. And unfortunately, what was happening was that there are two co-founders of this business called Elevators, which is a really cool avatar community that people can come into. It's really going to be exciting to learn about. But they kept going. And so I do have the two of them sharing a lot of good information. So I am, and I'll be great to hear what your thoughts are. But my thought was, I can do an intro, outro, and still use the meat of their conversation with each other. They had a great conversation with each other, explaining to people what their business was all about.
Okay, so let me see real quick. So what you're saying is, you had this tech issue.
Yes.
You pounded through it, right? Hey, totally cool. You pounded through it. But what happened was they weren't able to see or hear you. So they had a conversation with each other. And so you have their content, but you don't really have yours. Like, it's not you interviewing them. They're just talking to each other.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, and that's a perfect example right there. Perfect example. I love this. This is a pitfall right here. This is a perfect example of when things are going wrong, technology, whatever, like, just reschedule it, because that content, sure, there may be some golden nuggets in there, and But if you're not really in it, you're not really hosting it,
Yeah.
Tiffany, I don't know if I would, release that as an episode for your podcast. You could
Okay.
still promote them. You could still clip it. You could, because they're going to have some fire clips in there and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that would be one where I would reach back out to them
Reschedule.
and reschedule it. And
I
that's
love
one of
that.
those things where it kind of sucks because you're reaching out to them again and you're like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that, like, it kind of like it didn't work, and like, yeah, we made a mistake, and
Yes.
like, can we reschedule? And you're having to get more of their time from them, which they'll gladly give you, by the way. They will, but it just kind of is like not the greatest experience.
Yeah.
So
Right.
this is where I would much rather see you give them their time back right then and there. Like if you run into that snag,
Yes.
and you're like, dang it, you're like, okay, crap, camera's not working, whatever, mic's not working, something's not going right. Just say, hey, you know what? I totally appreciate you taking the time out. I tell you what, why don't we reschedule so we can figure out the tech here? I just want to make sure that we do this right, and we don't have to redo it. Measure twice, cut once, right? Measure twice, cut once, not measure once, cut twice. And that's exactly what we did here.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's why I need you. Because that makes sense. And I will definitely do that. Then the other episode, I recorded 2 yesterday, actually.
Yes, let's go.
And the other one, I started to have those. I did the 15-minute, like kind of a 10-minute preview that she and I were on together. And I was sensing another glitch in my computer. This is why I think I have to go into my settings. I got to do some exploration on my equipment. And then she brought it up. She said, I'm actually on my phone. And so I hadn't, but I did download the Riverside app.
Mm-hmm.
And I, have my phone holder in my ring light, and I was able to.
Yes.
My studio came right up on my phone.
This is actually, I love that you're bringing this up because this is hot off the press, brand new. Actually, Riverside just had an update, and it's so cool that you've already done it because I haven't even done what you're talking about. I love that you've already done it because it just came out. So you can use your phone now with Riverside, put it on a mount or whatever. Okay. You've got 4K cameras on your phone. These are amazing cameras. And so they're now using where you can use your camera and think about that. Imagine this, because you can do this. You can have multiple cameras in Riverside. So what's to say that you don't set up a multi-camera shot, okay, with just cell phones? Like, okay, you have your phone, and then maybe you go buy a couple of other iPhones that are a couple years old, like they're not that expensive. You may be paying $300-400 or whatever, but these are used for your studio cameras. You know what I mean? And like, how cool would that be to build your studio? Incredible. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh Simple. My gosh, yeah. That's so crazy.
Mm-hmm. But you did something that I haven't even done yet, so you're teaching me today. How did that go? How did it work with using your camera?
My goodness,
or your phone?
So smooth. It's the same as my computer program, and it's all it's all in my studio, right? So it's all there. So now I can go back onto my computer and watch this. And do what I want to do and make clips, etc. From my
curious.
Computer.
Okay, I'm curious on this. You're gonna have to tell me now.
Okay.
What was the audio like? Right? Was it using the audio from your phone?
Yes.
It was using the audio from your phone. Okay, so let's. I want you to time out with me for 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna step away real quick because this is gonna be so cool. I'm gonna show you guys something that's I love, and hopefully this is a piece of equipment that probably could solve that problem. So now we're going to have your cell phone, and we're also going to have studio quality audio to go along with your cell phone so you can record Riverside that way. Okay. So give me just a second because I literally have it right here. I'm going to go. I'll be right back. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay.
Stay tuned. We are tuning in. Trevor's equipment right there.
Okay.
He's got it.
All right, let me put my headphones back on here. Okay, cool. So I've got in here this piece of equipment. This is like show and tell for those that are watching on YouTube right
Yeah,
now.
I love it.
Okay. All right. These things are freaking amazing. This is for on the go. Podcasting on the go. Because let me tell you something. Sometimes, if you want to get where busy people are, okay, sometimes you might need to go where the busy people are.
Yes.
Okay. And this is how you can get some bigger guests. So I go to a lot of conferences, okay,
Yeah.
and I will interview some of the speakers on the conferences, right? And such a great way. I mean, it's just awesome. And it's a way that you can record in batch. I'll record 10. There's one time I did 21 episodes in 2 days, right? At a conference. That's all I did at the conference. I wasn't attending the conference. I was attending, but I did our show. Okay. And I did 21 episodes in 2 days. But here's a pretty cool piece of equipment. DJI. These are microphones. These little things. They're like little wireless lapel microphones. Okay. So you would clip this. Right? They even have magnets so that you can clip them. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then this right here is like your mixer. This is your receiver. Okay. And this little piece of equipment will either plug into your professional camera. Like if you have like this right here, I've got a Canon. Okay. Canon M50. And so it'll slide right in here. Okay. So now my Canon has professional audio, right? I'm out. And this little box comes with 2 of these, by the way. So it comes with 2 lapels. So you and the guest, right?
Yep.
Or this is the coolest part I like, is that this little mixer here, or this little receiver. Do you have iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Okay. I feel sorry for you. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry. I know. I'm not cool.
That's the easiest way to start a fight. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm open.
Let's shut this whole episode down. This is ridiculous. You have an iPhone.
I know. Oh my gosh.
So there's this little thing right here, and if you can see this, what is that? That's an iPhone adapter, right?
For that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you would take this little deal out here.
Yep.
And you would slide this little thing in here.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, you're just gonna literally
put it right into the phone.
Yep, slide that in. Well, I'm having difficulties right now, but yes, you're gonna slide that in.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
that's so cool.
And then you plug it into your phone. Okay, basically, you're gonna plug it into your phone. So, and this thing, what's so cool about this little box? See those lights right there?
Yeah.
The box is actually a charger. So you charge the box, and the box charges everything else.
That's great.
Okay, so this little box is everything you need. It literally has everything you need. So now you can use your cell phone, and your cell phone is a studio. You see what I'm talking about? Let's
100%. So
Let's
tell
go.
me what those are called again. CGI or
DJI.
DJI.
Okay. Just put in like DJI lapel microphones. I can't remember the exact like we'll name of it. Yeah, but they're freaking awesome. I love these things. I used these when I went out and I did an episode with Elena Cardone.
Yes.
When she was keynoting at Not on Our Watch, Texas, where they were talking about the child sex trafficking and all of that. Yep.
I watched all those, Trevor. Those were great interviews. Yeah.
Yeah. Really and I went to the conference anyway. So use these things are freaking awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So you could use this as, again, if you're doing with Riverside and you're trying to, use your phone. There you go. Bada bing, bada boom. Cool.
I love it.
So this has been like a master class. I know we've got so many. I know there's like a ton of golden nuggets in here that we're going to be able to clip out, which is so cool. I want to see if you have any last questions or even parting thoughts for somebody who's thinking about, hey, I want to start a podcast. I got a dream. I got a vision. I want to do this thing. What would you say to somebody like that? And yeah, maybe some words of encouragement. What are your thoughts?
Oh my goodness, Trevor, so many. But I just think I'm so encouraging. I think it has already changed my life, and I've only been doing it for 2 weeks.
Let's go.
And so, yes. And the other piece, one of the things that stopped me from starting, Trevor, was that I thought that everybody had a podcast and that there were millions of them, and that I would why should I do one, like, etc.
Mm,
If that makes sense.
mm-hmm,
And then I heard the percentage, and I can't remember it exactly right off my head now, but it was minuscule compared to our population of how many
mm,
podcasts there actually are. And I think when you are in a world of networking, Clubhouse, we think that everybody in the world is doing all these things because
mm-hmm.
those are the people we surround ourselves with. It turns out there's plenty of room.
Oh my gosh. So true. I
Plenty of room.
love that.
Jump on in. Water's fine.
Let me
Those are my
let me
parts.
touch on that real quick. So yes, there
Please.
are millions of podcasts. There really are. There are millions of podcasts. But you know what there are millions of dead podcasts. There's millions of
Yeah.
people who started and didn't complete, who didn't stay consistent. They recorded 10 episodes and then they saw, oh my gosh, this is hard. And then they quit.
Yeah.
That's what we call graveyard podcasts. There's millions of those. There's not millions of successful, amazing podcasts, right?
Yeah.
So what a great opportunity. If you can be consistent, you can do this. If you can be consistent, guys, you can do this. And the key to consistency is one of the other tips that I told you about, which was I recommend to do it live. I started live day one. Our first episode was live. And when you plant that flag and you tell the world, hey, Wednesdays at 9 a.m., right? Well, guess what? You got to show up. Okay. This morning is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
I had a guest lined up for this morning and it wasn't Tiffany. Okay. And you know what? Stuff happens. They had to reschedule. Okay. And I was just like, I got to show up. And I was like, you know what? Let's do a follow-up episode with Tiffany and let's talk to her about it. And I reached out and I was like, hey, Tiffany, you want to come on? And
Yes.
bada bing, bada boom. But I was prepared, even if Tiffany just said no, I was going to do a solo episode. Like the person who rescheduled on me, they were all apologetic and everything. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Blah, 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 blah. And maybe I can find you somebody else who could do it at the, I know it's last minute and blah, 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 because they know I'm live. And so
Yeah.
they felt bad that they put me under pressure. And I'm like, no. I said, I am my best fill-in guest.
Yeah.
Like, guess what?
Yes.
I don't have a guest. So guess what? It's all me today. Hey, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you never are like out of a guest. You just do a solo episode. If you run into an issue, just do a solo. Your audience wants to hear from you anyways. Right?
So true.
Think about it. But yeah, so do it live and that will give you consistency. Okay. I'm going to encourage you. Do it live. That will give you consistency. It will also give you pressure creates diamonds. Okay. And when that thing goes 3, 2, 1 live, guess what? You don't have time to mess around. You don't have time to think about like, like let's say you mess up. You have your intro, okay, and you're reading your intro, and you're like, let's say you stumble or whatever, and normally if it's not live, you're gonna want to like, oh, let's do a retake. Hold on, let me do that again. I've had people do that when I'm in episodes with them and they're interviewing me. And they'll like do their intro like three times before they get into interviewing me. I'm like, this is so like, no, don't do that.
Come on.
Don't do that. Just go live. And guess what? If you stumble on a word, guess what that is? That's called human. And why is podcasting so popular? It's because it's human, it's authentic, it's genuine.
Yeah.
And if you come off sounding like a robot, because you're trying to make it perfect. I would encourage you not to do that. Do it live, and that's going to add that authenticity to your show.
Yeah.
And it's also going to put the pressure in to just get it out there, right?
Do it.
Just do it.
Teach it.
Just teach it. Let's go. Well, Tiffany, I did get you, like, this was again, I just text you and was like, come on, let's go, let's do this. And you're so gracious to do that. So I do want to let you get back to your day. I know you got things going on, and this has been another amazing episode. And I just appreciate you so stinking much.
You too, Trevor. Oh my goodness. Thank you.
I told you what we're going to do is we're going to have a follow-up episode after a year. Okay. I want to see like the impact that this has had. I want to document this journey for you. I think it's so important for people to see like what this looks like. Right? Because there's so many people that have a dream and a vision and all of that. And I want to show them the difference. In a year, I promise you, you will be in a different place by doing this podcast. You will literally be in a different place. It will change your life. 100%. I know it. It will change your life. So I'm excited for you. Everybody go check out, Just Teach It, coming soon to a podcast near you. But Tiffany, thanks again for coming on the Who You Know show. Let's rock. Let's roll. Let's go. Bye.